Building a mid-range gaming PC in 2026 is becoming a luxury. With the price of essential hardware components skyrocketing, industry analysts warn that upcoming consoles like the PlayStation 6 could launch at nearly $1,000, all because of a single component. The reason for this massive spike in cost comes down to computer memory, commonly known as RAM. This chart shows the price of a standard 32GB DDR5 memory kit over the last 4 years. In early 2022, this hardware cost around $120. Today, that exact same kit has shot up to over $850, a 700% increase. In the consumer technology market, older components reliably get cheaper as manufacturing improves and newer generations arrive. A 4-year-old computer part multiplying in price violates the basic math of the industry. For people on a budget, this inflation is a wall. It forces buyers to abandon upgrades, settle for weaker systems, and pushes the basic requirements for modern gaming completely out of reach. This chart shows actual global demand for consumer RAM compared to its price. Between 2022 and 2026, demand grew by only 20 to 25%. A modest increase in demand doesn't cause a 700% surge in price under any normal free market condition. That exact mathematical impossibility is the foundation of a massive antitrust lawsuit recently filed in a California federal court by 17 plaintiffs. The lawsuit targets the 3 companies that manufacture nearly all of the world's memory: Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron. Together, they control 90% of the global DRAM market. This extreme market concentration suggests that the current supply shortage is a calculated, strategic move, rather than a natural market fluctuation. Faced with these accusations, the memory manufacturers point to the artificial intelligence boom. They claim they had to redirect their focus to produce high-bandwidth memory, or HBM, a specialized, highly efficient type of memory used in AI accelerators and data centers. The math for this pivot makes sense on their balance sheets. Producing 1 gigabyte of HBM yields 10 to 15 times the profit margin of standard consumer PC memory. Their official defense relies on a claim of physical capacity. They argue that to meet the massive demand for AI memory, they had to cannibalize their existing consumer PC memory production lines and convert them to make HBM. If those production lines were actually converted, it would neatly explain the empty shelves. It frames the consumer RAM shortage as an unavoidable casualty of the global rush to build artificial intelligence. This diagram outlines how these facilities are laid out. Consumer DRAM and advanced AI memory rarely share equipment. They run on entirely separate production lines. HBM requires specialized EUV lithography and complex vertical stacking techniques. Standard PC RAM doesn't use these advanced processes. Because the machinery and processes are so distinctly different, semiconductor experts have concluded that the manufacturer's claim of converting consumer lines lacks technical credibility. With the manufacturing paths isolated from each other, scaling up AI memory didn't require shutting down PC memory. Restricting the consumer supply was a deliberate choice to starve the market and drive up prices. This exact group of companies has been caught doing this before. In 2002 and 2006, they paid billions of dollars in fines for colluding to fix memory prices, and they faced antitrust investigations again in 2018. The current lawsuit details a familiar pattern. Between 2022 and 2024, executives from these 3 firms held at least 12 private meetings at industry conferences. Within weeks of those meetings, all 3 companies issued perfectly synchronized announcements that they would restrict consumer RAM supply. Just 4 days after the lawsuit was filed, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung announced a massive response, a pledge of over $550 billion to expand the country's memory production capacity. But looking at the allocation reveals the catch. The vast majority of this expansion is earmarked for producing more of the highly profitable HBM for AI, not standard PC memory. The rapid government intervention acts as a massive political and economic shield to protect South Korea's vital semiconductor industry from legal fallout, while doing absolutely nothing to alleviate the artificially created consumer shortage. For anyone waiting to buy parts, the only question that matters is when memory prices will finally drop back to normal. This timeline maps the 4-year legal cycle of the 2002 price-fixing scandal. Applying that multi-year process to the current lawsuit, plus time needed for new factories to open, analysts project prices won't normalize until late 2027 or as late as 2030. Normally, a competitor would step in to undercut these prices, and Chinese hardware companies are trying to develop their own memory technology. But strict U.S. sanctions restrict their access to the advanced lithography machines needed to manufacture them. Between the extreme cost of building a chip factory and international trade sanctions blocking new competitors, this three-company oligopoly is completely insulated from standard free market corrections. Until the legal system forces a change, consumers have limited options. Market experts recommend delaying system upgrades indefinitely, relying on the used memory market, or simply sticking with older, cheaper DDR4 hardware if you have to build today. This engineered shortage has exposed the extreme fragility of the global technology supply chain. The foundational building blocks of our entire digital infrastructure are controlled by just three companies. Until that concentration of power is broken, global consumers remain entirely at their mercy.